से धो दूंगी माथे के सलवट, मुस्का के पोछूंगी हर एक शिकन। वो खुशियाँ ही क्या जो बाटी नहीं, जितनी बातों में उतनी बातें। वो अखियाँ ही क्या जो छलकी नहीं, आंखें खुशियों से झरझर गए।
दीपिका,
I'll be moving.
okay.
Once she walks in.
All right. Let me just introduce the book a little bit. I think a lot of you would have seen this book out there in the front. It's a book that's taken Deepika some time to write, but I'm very glad that it's finally out and we're going to see it today. It says that the book is what we call an inventive, irreverent coming-of-age novel, a not-so-delightful romp through 1980s and through early 90s India. It talks about growing up at a certain time and in an uncertain India. It speaks of loss, it speaks of love, and it speaks about the journey that it compels us all to make. The Red Helmet is Deepika Shetty, my good friend's debut novel, and it is a fiction title published by Sunshine Art Publications. This is the publications arm of Sunshine Art, which has established its name globally with the excellently curated Kala Sutra series of exhibitions, led by Sanchit Joshin. Now, if I could tell you a little bit more about the book, I would, but I will let Deepika and some other special guest stars for this evening tell you a little bit more about the book. Let me tell you a little bit more about the author. Many of us here already know the author, but for those who don't, visual arts, museum shows, and Bollywood are three areas that Deepika Shetty developed as her beat as the arts correspondent in the Straits Times, and many of you would have read many of her articles, but that's a different voice. The voice we hear today is of a slightly different Deepika, who's grown through the years. Before that, she was with Channel News Asia for about 6 years. She anchored a weekly segment for books on Channel News Asia's breakfast show, then called Primetime Morning, where she was the producer. And in India, she worked for the Times of India and India Today. That's not all that she does. I don't know how she finds the time, but on the literary front, she's moderated at several key literary festivals in Australia, as well as Ubud, Gaul, and Singapore. Saris, as many of you know, are her most recent love, forming the subject of her next book. Just a little heads up there. And her popular Facebook page, Sari Sari, was launched in 2013, and as I can see from the audience here, has galvanized a new interest in the garment in a whole new generation. The Red Helmet, she says, is a debut novel, and one which she says has taken her 23 years to write. Now, I've known Deepika for what, 15 years, is it, Deeps? I think 15 years. Our friendship goes back a long way, but I think we really started becoming friends when we were in Channel News Asia, where she worked the graveyard shift, and I worked the morning shift, and about 10 a.m. we'd get together for coffee and chai, and we'd speak, and that's where the friendship started, and it grew over glasses of vino, over lots of garna khana by the saucy chef, and lots of evenings spent just chatting about all kinds of things. Now, over the years, I've seen Deepika's voice grow in confidence. My voice is not so good today. I'm sorry, I just came back from an early morning flight. So I've seen her voice grow. I've seen a increasingly confident Deepika, not just in her dressing, in the way she speaks, in the way she puts together her voice, and in the way she expresses her views. I'm very pleased to have been one of the first few people to have had the chance to read the first few pages she put together of the book, and I must say I couldn't wait to read the rest of the book, and I'm very glad that she put together the book. Now, my main takeaway from the book is that despite the ha-ha hee-hee that a lot of us put up in front of everybody, which is the author's words, not mine, that behind a lot of these ha-ha hee-hees, everyone has a different story, and often there's pain in that story, and the pain could be pain that's inflicted or born or ignored or overcome. And if we can understand a little bit more about that pain, we understand more about people and about life itself, perhaps. Thank you, Deepika Shetty, for the Red Helmet. Now, we'd like to bring the words of the Red Helmet alive on stage. And as many of you know, Deepika is a very strong, staunch supporter of social media. So how better than to have somebody who's a great social media exponent come up and read to us something from the book. If I could introduce Gauri, better known as B.
Hello Singapore. It's nice to see so many of you here today. My name is Gauri and I'm going to be reading out a short passage from the book. I'm sure all of us can relate to it since it's to do with this crazy little thing called love. This could not be happening. Ghee ka dabba was here. 300% pure ghee, I tell you. Not literally ghee, you know. Sweet, fair, lovely Panju boy. He was right here in front of me. By Panju standards, actually by any standards, national or international, he was super hot. Sharp nose, bushy eyebrows, straight out of Africa, super thick hair, and man, killer eyes. This is not something I needed to see now, perhaps never. No, I did not need perfection in a ghee ka dabba, or any other dabba at this point in my life. Replaying in my head my own bonfire of love letters. Remember, broken heart. Remember, remember, remember. Why would he even bother paying any attention to me? Beat me. Much too much was happening, but he was so cute. I could not help but ask, "Excuse me, do you know me?" "Sort of." "What do you mean, sort of? You either know me or you don't." Ghee ka dabba smiles. Perfect pearlies, nice full lips, a mustache. Oof! When God takes his time creating, they do show up looking like this, like Adonis himself. I can't stop gazing at his light brown eyes. He notices, then winks. It is enough to shake me up. "What is your name?" I ask again. "Simardeep Singh." "Are you simmering all the time? Where is your turban?" He looks at me and laughs. "Were you born slightly mental?" Thank you.
I'm not sure who Ghee ka dabba was based upon. If it's here, please claim who you are. But if you're not, if I can invite another very good friend to also come up on stage. I think many of you are familiar with her face and her work. She is producer, presenter for BBC World News, regularly anchors Asia Business Report and Newsday from the BBC's... What? My very glamorous and good friend, Sharanjan Lail.
I'm good. Good to see you.
There you go.
Hello, all of you. Great to see you. Can you hear me? Does this work? Fantastic. I think you can hear me now. That's great. What Asha failed to mention is that I'm also, of course, as you know, of Indian descent, but born here in Singapore. So when Deepika asked me to read this passage, I just said, you know, I'm going to mangle up all the Punjabi words and everyone's going to laugh. So I think she said, no, let them laugh. I think it'll be very funny. So please forgive me as I mangle up the Indian words. But she asked me to read this passage and she sent it to me suitably on Facebook, which is where she does a lot of her wonderful work. You see her on, you know, Sadi Sari all the time and all sorts of amazing things. I think Deepika is amazing on Facebook, and so does my mother and everybody else who follows her. So here we go. This is the passage about Nani. Now, Nani would complain every morning about us not being very cultured, no manner shama, no discipline. Anger was absolutely no issue for her. She was angry about everything. The water cuts in summer, her green garden would suddenly start looking brown, the load shedding, the rising prices. And the prices decay, te nal todi cold drink day. She would start her complaint loop with egg prices, followed a close second by the fizzy drinks we loved drinking to beat the summer. Now this discursive trend would then extend logically to other incidental rising prices. It wasn't like she was short of money. As a war widow, she got our grandfather's pension. She had enough land and enough gold on herself to make her an easy target for anyone with even a mild affliction for bling. Now, she carried stack loads of rupees packed in separate stashes that went into 5 different pouches of varying sizes for her handbag. One evening, when she went for her egg shopping, she was carrying a grand total of 10,000 rupees in many of these pouches. The men on the scooter must have been watching her for days. They must have been pulling out her various small stashes of rupees from, oh dear, I've lost my spot. Hang on. This is typical Facebook, hang on. 77. No, I can't see. I need glasses, hang on. Okay, oh, anyway, I'll skip forward, and she goes, well, she said she heard nothing, and the next thing she knew, the handbag was holding in the crook her right arm was gone. Nal, 10,000 hajar rupee, haye ande. With that, 10,000 rupees and those eggs. Followed by a string of colourful Punjabi expletives, too colourful to bear repetition for the cultured classes. She was hysterical. She kept repeating this line about going out to buy eggs and losing 10,000 rupees. This abusive, expletive-laden, repetitive streak was completely in character with her character, who had a fondness for repeating things. We had to go to the police station with her because she was in no state to walk alone. The lines in a loop. She must have said the same thing over 100 times, not giving the cop on duty a moment to get a word in. How she had all these various pouches of various shapes, sizes, and colours, how they all contained cash, how she made sure it was split so not one of them went missing. She would be able to reach out for money in the other. She did this because she had not visualized, worst case, in this case, the entire handbag being stolen. I was almost beginning to feel sorry for the cop. Like us, he had been listening to this saga for nearly an hour. I'm sure he had many more important cases to attend, but Nani, being Nani, didn't believe in pauses. When the cop finally spoke, he had just one question. Biji ane paise ane vashte? You took so much money to buy eggs. Well, we should not have laughed. It was seriously not funny, but we could not stop. She had her police with the promise of no guarantee of the bag ever being found, meaning the money was gone. I think it was not so much losing the money, it was our wrong laughter moment which got onto her. On our longest walk back to her home, she did not let us hear the end of it, after which she never let us forget the day we laughed when she lost 10,000 rupees. Passe de no value, she scolded us in her Pinglish. You know, when Punjabi meets English. Thank you for putting up with my mangling Punjabi.
Thank you, Shiranjit. Deepika can never make fun of my good Jew-influenced speaking again, because now she's had you speak. And I'm sure we all have nannies like that. Okay, for the third reading, I'm very pleased to invite artist Narayan Chandra Sinha. I think many of us know him from his jewelry, but today he's traveled the distance all the way from Calcutta just for this event, and I see that some people here are already wearing his jewelry. Please.
Namaskar, Shubho Shonda Bandhura. Namaste and good evening. I'm very nervous. I'm reading few lines from Deepika's book, Red Helmet. As soon as I step out of the plane, I can't feel the ground beneath my feet. I feel like I'm still floating above the clouds. As soon as the glass door automatically swings open and I see the sign, "Welcome to Changi Airport," the aroma wafting in the air makes me feel high without the glass of wine. The floor is carpeted, there are flowers in all the right places, and I'm looking for, sorry, I'm so nervous. Okay, I'm dying to go to the loo. Oh.
You can.
More aromas breathe through the air. There is a cleaner boy cleaning what looks sparkling like cling to me. I have never in my life, not that my life has been too long, since public toilets like this. I can so live in this city. Yes, this can be home. This was exactly the emotion I experienced when I landed in Singapore. Cleanliness, flower, proper synchronized city. I'm so happy here for Deepika. Thanks, Deepika, and best of luck. Thank you.
How was your experience at Changi Airport, Narayan?
You're the same.
Okay. Well, we've heard from three very unique individuals. Perhaps it's time to hear now from the author herself. Deepika, please.
I can tell you I'm as nervous as everybody else who's come up on stage, but there are 3 copies of my book here, so I guess I will be all right at some point. I am deeply touched, overwhelmed to just see so many of you here. And so many of you in saris, like sari, really. Thank you so much. Shukran, Habibi. Habibi is beloved, which I shouldn't be saying, but really from the bottom of my very deep heart, I know there are just so many options on any given day, and you have come here for the red helmet. What does a book mean to you? I have been asked this in interview after interview. I see it as something more than the words you see on the pages of my debut novel, The Red Helmet. I see it as a coming together of family, of friends who have traveled the distance, most notably Narayan Chandrasena from Calcutta. My publishers have arrived for just one day hand-carrying the books that you have just bought. I see it as a way of connecting with people I would not otherwise know. I see it as a bond that perhaps even transcends friendship. I see it as a way of reaching out to my Master Ji. I see it as a way of going to the post office almost every other day to send out a copy of this book. And on the day that I don't show up at the post office, the auntie asks me, "Why you never come yesterday?" At a time when the future of the written word itself is being debated, and we are increasingly being told reading is dying, I'm optimistic about the very future of that written word that is being increasingly written off. I believe words connect in more and deeply profound ways than any other narrative device. We live books, we breathe books, we inhabit the skins of characters that arrive on pages. When we are reading books, we sometimes forget to cut our nails. We sometimes forget to cut our hair. Or if we color our hair, we sometimes forget to color our hair. Much as I love my cinema, movies don't make that possible. They do other things for books, but that's quite another story. This evening, the very fact that so many of you are here in this room tells me something. That the word can continue to be a narrative device to celebrate so many things on so many levels. Is the red helmet my life? I don't know. If you believe it is fact, so be it. If you believe it is fiction, so be it. If you believe it is fantasy, that's even better. I've been asked why I'm asking readers to review The Red Helmet. Whenever anybody orders a copy, I put in a handwritten note and I tell them, send me your review. I say it on Facebook all the time. I say it on all my social media platforms. Why am I asking this? After all, isn't literary criticism nearly enough? I don't think so. Why am I asking for a word or a sentence or something even more from you? It is a fair question of you to ask. I'm asking because I want to know. I want to see which part of the book stays with you, if at all. I want to know whether you like it or you loathe it. And it's fine either way. I've been a reader pretty much all my life, and I've often been surprised that writers don't ask their readers more of these questions. Because now that I don't seriously review books, often there are many things I want to say to writers, and then I don't. After all, it is readers who make writers. I also ask for a very selfish reason. I want to know if my writing is working. If not, it is in all our interests that I stick with my journalism. I've had some measure of success with my reportage. If this other creative experiment, the red helmet that I embarked on, is not working, it is best I stop now and try no more. I ask because books take the life out of us. Even on a speed run, they are often at least 3 years of a writer's life. Richard Flanagan said it so much more articulately than I ever will be able to say it. Novels are life, or they are nothing. Yes, this has taken me 23 years to write. And with that, I'm going to turn my own page. How many Punjabis in this room? Brilliant. I think this is going to resonate with a lot of you. It's the part about tragic pet names when you how many of you have tragic pet names? Yeah, okay. I mean, all Punjabis have very tragic pet names. I mean, a Bengali has a name like Mamta and they become Maya, but with Punjabis, very strange things happen. So this is tragic pet names. Tell me, Masi, why do we have such tragic pet names? What do you mean, tragic pet names? Look at all of us. Our parents spend weeks, months, who knows, even years, picking the right names for us. And look what becomes of them. Good morning, Honey, Bunny, Googie, Pinny, Chintu, Mintu, Monty, Shonty, Ponty, Happy, Chappy, Chappy. I wonder why they even bother giving us real names when the entire extended family and the neighborhood has to turn us all into many food variants along the way. Golgappa, Chikku, Nal, Aloo di Tikki, Ay, Hi, Mera Kulfi da Faluda. Mummy ji, hon tujhe aisa bas, please bas karo. Monty sweet di dukaan na banao menu. Thodi Kaju Katli, Pinky, Shinky, Twinkie, Nal Little Star. My season splits as I fully reconnect with my complete blue-blooded Panju lineage. We are like that only. My MC is kind of waiting for me to read the rest of the book.
Come on, you can read all of it.
I spent enough time writing it, I hope someone else reads it.
Okay, let's have the official launch of the book now. If I can invite on stage publisher Sanjeet Joshin and his mother, Anu Joshin, who have come all the way here just for one day for the launch of this book. And of course, Bala Shetty, I almost forgot you. Kidding. The reason why Deepika is in Singapore. And if I can invite Anisha to bring the book up. The book is here. It's here.
Okay, we are having a bit of, my daughter's now gone out, but they say if it's not all right, it's clearly not the end.
Yes.
It's okay.
I shall present it to her. We can have the pose. Are we having the red helmet as well? The red helmet? No? Okay, if I can invite Subira to give a little something to Deepika. Subira.
She's calculated all the stars.
Thank you. Sanjeev would like to say something?
Yeah.
everyone. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate the author because I think it's been a long journey for her to realize her dream in a way. Because for any person who has a story that is untold, she once remarked to the curator of a Kala Sutra exhibition that it's like having an unborn child. That was her expression for the book. That is when we really thought we could see the intensity and the passion that she has for the story that she wants to put out to everybody. So that is when we requested her to let us publish the book, and since then it has been an absolute pleasure for us to be a part of this very, very exciting journey, and we are happy that all of you have joined us today. During the process of publishing the book, there have been various instances where I think you all have contributed, so I would not like to take all the credit along with her. The choice of the cover has been greatly decided by all of you on Facebook. So we appreciate all the feedback that all of you gave all along. And as a publisher, the only thing I would like to remark is that there are many people who have untold stories, but they are not very forthcoming. People are skeptical about whether to publish it or not. With the modern age publishing methods and self-publishing, it is now very easy for people to put out their story, and I think everyone should, for the simple reason that sometimes we win and the other times we learn. So there is really nothing to lose if we do something, and people might appreciate it, people might not appreciate it. But it is very important for us to put out what we want to convey. That's all. Thank you once again for being here. And I hope you all.
Thank you, Sanchit. So Deepika, if you'd like to take your seat, I'll call the moderator up, Imran. Imran, who is ethnically Pakistani, commodity trader by day, thrill seeker by passion, and who apparently loves adventure and musty with the red helmet. So I shall leave the two of them to start the conversation, after which we'll be happy to take questions from the audience, any questions you may have, the difficult ones first preferably.
Thank you. Deepika, first of all, congratulations, and delighted to see so many of your friends and followers. I know you're very active on social media. At 4 a.m. also, you're posting stuff on Sari Sari. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. This is a conversation, so we'll take it as it goes. I've forgotten all the questions I was going to ask you.
Which is great, because I've forgotten all the answers I'd written to those questions.
Okay, great. All I can say is that what's stopping me from being here is this, because I've got a flight to catch, as you know. And this book is traveling tonight, late nights, to Lima, Peru. And hopefully tomorrow morning, or next morning, I'll take a picture or a selfie on Machu Picchu and send it back to you.
I encourage selfies. I encourage all red helmet selfies. The hashtag is the red helmet.
Absolutely, will do. Okay, so let's start. Let's get the first and ever popular question out of the way, and something that I'm sure many of the people who've read it will ask. Fact or fiction? Is this your life story?
I get asked that all the time.
So many characters relate to people we know. Tell us.
But as I said in my speech, if you think it is fact, it is great, it's fact. If you think it is fiction, then it's fiction. And I'd like it to go to the next level, which is fantasy. And I can tell you a lot of my friends who have tried decoding the fact from the fiction have got it totally wrong. But I think what really happens is that particularly when you're writing your first book, you're going to draw really from the story of your life. And I would like to believe that after that, maybe you have a bit more confidence in your voice and you would experiment a little bit more. But for your first book, you would go back to the reality that defines you. This book is not a memoir, otherwise I would have called it a memoir. There is a reason I call it fiction, because even though it draws heavily on my life, a lot of it is imagined. And I think that is the way books are. How else do we explain this whole experience of writers going out of India and then still delving into a particular street in Calcutta, or still remembering the smell of the turmeric, or how the dal was cooking? We kind of keep going back to that, and we are great at that whole descriptive experience of how the dal was made, how the anda was fried. It sort of stays in our DNA, you know, when our mothers are cooking, how the smell of the food goes into their hair. And we describe it so beautifully. So we are, in a sense, drawing on our lives. you know, and we write differently because our lives are just so very different. And I think there is really nothing wrong if you want to take your life story and turn it into fiction. Everybody has a story. I think that has been the premise also for the Sari page that I started. I really started it because I felt that we are completely obsessed with celebrity. If you're Deepika Padukone, you're in the papers like a million times, and I just have to keep seeing Deepika Padukone and I have to believe she's a celebrity. Why can't a woman who sells flowers on a street in Little India be my celebrity? Why can't the auntie who's wearing a sari and selling a newspaper not get a platform for her story to be celebrated? And I have always believed as a journalist that the stories are everywhere and it is our job to find them. And maybe I found a story that was largely inspired by a certain time in a really uncertain India.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. We'll come back to your voice because I want to capture that thought a little later. But you talk about a time in India, and I was reading through the book, the Pataka Guddi comes to my mind, you know, the recent film, and a trailblazing young lady breaking the norms, setting precedent, and, you know, stepping up in a very uncertain India, in a very different India to what we have now. So tell us how that has impacted your writing and how the story is shaped through that mirror that you look back in.
I'm trying to look at faces here. We've got a very mixed crowd, but for those of you who grew up in India in the 1980s, you would remember television had just arrived in our home and we would get dispatched to the roof, and my father would say, you know, in a time before GPS, abhi antenna Saharanpur kar do, nahi, abhi signal nahi aaya, abhi Mussoorie kar do, you know, turn the antenna to Saharanpur. We lived in a valley in Dehradun. Or now turn it to Mussoorie, the signal still hasn't come, you were permanently slapping your TV into submission and still there was nothing, and by the time you toggled between Saharanpur and Mussoorie and come back to the valley, the entire thing would trip and then you would get onto a transformer. I mean, getting a passport was such a big deal, like we travel, abhi to, you know, just say we're getting on Shatabdi Express or something. But if you grew up in 1980s India, there were no options pretty much. You watched Krishi Darshan. You were screwed because you watched Chitrahar, you know, you could have no romance in your life because constantly these flowers used to come and all of that used to happen. And I just felt in Indian writing, somehow that period of time wasn't really captured. We did a lot of stuff like partition, we did a lot of, so-and-so went to the US and then we captured a lot of Calcutta. We did that really well. But if you grew up in Punjab post Operation Blue Star, I mean, first you had Krishi Darshan and freaking Chitrahar to like mess up all the wires in your brain, and then you had a curfew, and then there was no option of sort of anything happening in your life. Like your lives were completely surrounded, you know, you grew up in these big houses, you were completely lonely and you were longing for love. But you had also seen a lot of things that happened in India. And I think I grew up seeing what happened post Operation Blue Star and the whole impact of what really went wrong in India. And in some ways I wanted to capture that, but I also wanted to capture it maybe with a greater sense of humor. And a lot of people tell me that you start off like this and your tone changes. It's something you observed as well. But we call it the hook. As a journalist, we are taught that, right? If your opener is solid, the reader is going to, if your first paragraph is solid, the reader is going to get to the third paragraph.
The reader calls it the hook, line and sinker, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way great stories are told. Or if you've sorted out your beginning and your ending, something in the middle can be something else. And I don't want to say what that something else is because a lot of you have not read the book, but when you read it, you will figure out that a lot of the things that you thought exist don't actually exist.
I'm going to push on that because, you know, you talk about Chitrahar and the changing the channels. There are some Pakistanis here in the crowd, and you know, some of us will remember in Lahore, we couldn't get much coverage, so we used to send a guy upstairs, and he used to move the channel. And then we'd move there, and they'd say, oh, hey, you just don't move, stand there. Yeah. So this is what comes.
But you obviously came from a better family than I did, because I was standing on the roof, and on the system you could say, every time I came back, my father would send me up, or my mother would send me up, or I was like permanently fixing that transformer. We had a Televista TV, I used to pretty slap it, you know. Like, like, please let me watch television, you know. I mean, I wanted to capture that time really in India, and it was a crazy time. You would agree. I mean, if you look at our lives now, we don't get Wi-Fi for 2 minutes. हमारी जान निकल जाती है. तब तो we used to watch
I
what?
can relate to that.
Eins, zwei, drei. How many? Are there any Germans? We used to watch this. Yeah. Oh, okay. We used to watch this tele match. And I used to feel so good because I could say eins, zwei, drei, and I would keep saying it like all day. And I wanted to be like this newscaster. And I wanted to put flowers in my hair, and my mother would back me because I had taken off a whole rose bush. You know, I think our dreams were very simple at that time. Like our aspirations were very simple.
There's not much choice also.
But it was, so that's the time I wanted, because I think that's the time that hasn't been captured a lot, at least from the reading that I have done of Indian writing in English. And that's the time I wanted to go back to, and I wanted to experiment with various styles. So my book opens with a FAQ, and which is really how the story of the book started, because I finished editing a book, and one day, I was sitting and I imagined a FAQ that there is this very famous writer and who's been called onto a TV show which I used to produce. And I wrote this FAQ and I posted it on Facebook, and it went viral, and there were 3 publishers in India who said, we want the rest of the book. So I have a friend who's an agent, she says, give us the rest of the book. I said, there's no rest of the book. So I only had FAQs. So I said, chalo, now let's imagine the rest of the book. And I wrote 50 pages.
Right.
And I had pulled out 15, and Asha is one of my early readers. I pulled out 5 people and I sent it to them. They all said, I mean, some of them said nothing and they took me out for a drink, which sort of said a lot. But a lot of, I mean, most of them said it's very funny and it's quirky and yeah, do it, you know, write the rest of the book kind of thing. Then I said, chalo, yeah, these are friends saying, and I then called up Meera Chand, who's traveling today, but she will be there on November 2nd. And she's a great mentor for writers. And I really believe in the power of people who can be critical of your writing. My very dear friend Linda Collins is in the audience. This book owes a lot to her. She's one of my early readers as well. And Linda is critical, and you need that for your writing to improve as a writer. And Meera and Linda, they gave me such good feedback. Meera particularly, you know, she approached us as a writer, and when you read the book, you will also notice the kind of transition that happens in the book with the so-called voice. And Meera told me, you have a voice, so you must continue writing this. But she said, you have a very hurried voice. It's like you don't like to breathe and you're not letting the reader breathe. But don't change it too much, but you should know that you're not doing journalism anymore. Like your space is not going to run out, because you know, as a journalist we work with these cartons and they're 30 cms and they're 40 cms and you're looking at 20 more quotes to fit. Abhi kya kaato, you know, you're constantly out of breath as a journalist. And you realize as a writer you can take your foot off.
But you've got to carry your reader through, right? So in the paper when you write and talk about that, because
we still have to carry the reader through in the paper also. But it's a different kind of carrying the reader through. Like you can decide you're on a slow bus ride and you can kind of carry on with that bus ride. So I think I was in a bit of a tearing hurry as a writer initially, and then I settled down. You know, and then I said, okay, my space is not going to run out. I can write as many pages as I want to. I can write as many words as I want to. It can be edited, and if you're planning to write a book, please write more words, because you know, by the time your editor sits with your manuscript, he's going to maul it all and tell you to take out half of it. I think by the time I was done, the very first draft had almost 400,000 words, which of course you didn't, I mean, I'm not Vikram said, so I said, this can't be a suitable boy. So let's get real with this. But if you have more words, you have more stuff to play with and you can take out things. So I think you should just write.
Just write.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another theme. Maybe I'll read this one a little bit. Sharanjit, if you're there, I'll try and pronounce it in slightly better Punjabi.
No, I picked her because it was the perfect accent, you know, English. She did it really well.
BBC Punjabi, I think it's very well done. right. Okay, so this is, and I need you to go back to this because it's an interesting theme that you bring out. It's about the India-Pakistan war again, and 1965 A lot of us were on the other side of the border, some were not born. So this is a story about your Nani saying something. So when we get to this point in the story, she's talking about your Nana. Nani is invariably in tears. Jarnail ban sakda si tuada Nana. Dil di bimari na hundi. I'm not going to translate it in English because it gets lost a little bit. Do you feel that a little bit of thing is lost in translation, but do you also feel that you've carried that message through? Because it's a very powerful message about loss and life, and the Hara Pila Ghar, and your Nani talking about the colors that missed her life. You know, she's got a colorful house because she missed that in life. Tell us more about that.
I think I'm glad you picked that, and there's a reason you're my moderator. I'm doing my bit for India-Pakistan ties in a very serious way. I think there are a lot of imagined borders between India and Pakistan, and when I was thinking of this event, I was very clear I would ask Imran, and I'm so delighted. I didn't tell him what to pick from the book. I'm so delighted he has read the book and he's picked that particular passage. I think if you look at women of that generation, they came, or whichever side of the border they were on, they carried so much within them. They'd seen the partition, they'd seen whatever happened on those trains. I think whatever we have seen, and I saw quite a fair bit in 1980s after Blue Star. But I think nothing could sort of match the level that the generation of my Nani had seen. There was a lot of pain, there was a lot of agony. I think a lot of women of that generation were seriously depressed, but we didn't know what depression was. The very fact that I gave Sharanji that passage, that women of that era walked with all that money because they felt they were going to lose it all. They wore a lot of gold. Even now, if anybody's Nani is alive, you'll see, their earlobes would be falling down. Or this thing. And they're completely abusive. Sometimes I tell you, look up to your elders. If you were to speak that language, it would be, my Nani was the most colorful character in a sense. But also they were very complex characters, and they grew up with this whole history around them. And that was the history, and that was the pain I was looking for, even when I was describing a very simple act of her taking 10,000 rupees to say buy 6 eggs. But they did. And they had 20 pouches in their bag, and their bags had multiple pouches. So if you got stuck somewhere, you could never be unstuck because the keys would never be found. There was no such thing of getting out of your house in a hurry. Because everything had to be locked, because the bedroom would be locked, then this door would be locked. And just looking at the complexity of their lives, and if you look at their very acts, it points to a really emotional angst within them. Why were they doing these things? So even if I'm describing it as a fun way, I think there is a very deep narrative to it.
Let's touch on that then, because we've talked about the voice a little bit, and there is a very serious part of the book, and of course you've got a humorous voice to many of it. Now, I've been following your articles for a very long time. I've never seen you write a funny piece, and this is a serious book with a very beautifully funny prose around it. So how do you have a different voice? We talked, Asha mentioned that. Which is the real Deepika?
I think the real Deepika is still waiting to be found. But Asha picked it up very, very correctly, that I do think my voice has matured in many ways. Also, I think I have been lucky in a sense that I have been able to straddle medias. I spent 6 years in television, and television teaches you to write really differently. You're writing to pictures, you're writing you're like a copywriter, ekdam hari mein maza aa raha hai, everything is coming up after the break. Stuff like that. And what people don't get is, as anybody who works in a television newsroom is actually churning out content like nobody's business. And we are constantly looking at 50 windows, so we are wired in a certain way. And then you come to print and you realize you have to now write in a completely different way. But you're right, my reportage is very serious. In 7 years as a journalist with the Straits Times, I have never written a funny article. I rarely write.
Did you try?
No, I didn't even try. I didn't even try, also because I take my reportage very seriously. I'm very focused on it. I write about the arts, I'm completely serious about it. I write about Indian cinema, I'm totally serious about it. And I think what social media gave me was the ability, and I thanked Facebook in my credits, was the ability to actually see if this voice could go somewhere. And I've been routinely surprised with stuff that goes viral, and a lot of it does, that people pick up on all this. And I think when you're writing, journalism is a very serious exercise, you know. It doesn't allow you these shades of grey. Or even if you're trying to be funny, you have to background it a little bit or whatever. So I don't, and somehow this book sort of fell into place, and I had the next 250 pages to experiment. So I really enjoyed it, and I love the fact that I can try all these voices, that I can be a serious journalist and I can get onto social media, I can write a certain way. And anybody who tracks my social media would find that that voice has somehow gone in here as well.
Yes.
That's the voice. I don't think it's my reporter's voice at all.
No.
But they are very distinct voices, and I think that's the way we are, right? When we are at home, we talk to our husband in a certain way. Imran, kya hai? Tune phone nahi uthaya, you know? Or, you know, or when we talk to our children, we talk a certain way. And then if we are going out as a reporter, we talk a certain way. We dress up a certain way.
Right.
So we have those voices. I don't think it is, maybe we are just not aware of the fact that we are switching into all these voices on a daily basis. Like if I'm speaking to a newsmaker, I have my proper clipped comment, semi-imagined British accent on. But if I'm speaking to anybody else, I mean, my kids keep saying that you have such a strange accent, you know, when you talk to people on the phone, you sound so perfect and poised. And I don't speak like that. I mean, generally, like if I'm talking to you, I speak in a complete Hindi, Punjabi, whatever, you know. So I think you're also switching those voices every day. Maybe you're not aware of it.
No, I think it's an exploration in voices, which is very interesting. I think should we open it up to
We should, because we have cocktails and I'm dying to have a drink.
Well, when you read the book, you realize a couple of obsessions come out. She's got an obsession with shoes for men. And I don't know if Bala is around, but you know, so I chose these especially for her. And
Actually, I hadn't noticed your shoes now.
You did?
No, I'm not too stressed today to notice anybody's shoes.
And wine, so that is holding us back. But let's open it up for questions and for Deepika.
Can I just start?
Sure.
You mentioned obsessions, and you like obsessions in three, right? Because
Yes,
why was it the?
Ooh.
Saris.
Saris.
Sadi sari.
That was the reason.
Huma.
Many successes with Indian authors in recent years, and I was just wondering if you had any favorite author.
Oh yes, I do, and I've acknowledged them in interviews. Topping my list really is Vikas Swaroop. I think what Vikas has done is really shown me the fact that you could write a story in so many ways. And people are on the fence about Chetan Bhagat. I've read all of his books. I may not like all of them. But I think he has freed us up in terms of writing. That we can write as a conversation piece, that it doesn't have to be literary anymore. And I think for the longest time we thought we had to write a certain way, and all of that has changed. And I feel that sense of freedom now when I read these writers, and I'm very optimistic about Indian writing in English, because every time I go to India, there are more writers on the shelf, and which is a great thing, you know. I think more the merrier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Over here.
Is there a specific book that's influenced your outlook on life in a certain way that's completely changed it?
No, I don't think so. I'm complicated like that. I wouldn't want to be limited or defined by a certain book. But many books I've been reading very actively from the time I was a kid. And well, I didn't read till I was 15. I think the only thing I'd read till I was 15 was Enid Blyton. But then after that, Nancy Drew, and also because I was struggling with my maths and my science when I was in school. So my whole challenge was, how do I not fail my maths? So my whole energy was focused on looking at these numbers. And when I finished my 10th standard, and thank God I didn't have to study maths and science, it completely freed me up to read everything that existed in the college library. And I did. The librarian used to tell me, why don't you become the librarian? You're sitting here all the time and you're reading. And of course, there were no distractions, so you could read very actively like that. I did a book show for 6 years in television. I read completely actively, and I have no biases. I'm very open to voices. In fact, I want to see what more can a voice do. I don't want to keep reading the same thing, and I like it when writers do something hatke.
If you read a book, you'll realize what maths marks she got. Not very inspiring. When my son and some other kids are here, you can still do well in life.
Vicky has a question.
the title. You are Punjabi, right? Why red helmet and not red turban? No.
Is Clarence Fernandez in the audience? He's not. Actually, you should blame Clarence Fernandez, because my working title for this book was Sadi Love Story G. And I wasn't, and of course it was then starting to sound like a Sadi Sari franchise, which wasn't very nice. I think as a writer I should be a little more creative, at least with the title. I hope you read the book, Ricky, because you will understand why. खरीद तो ली है, पढ़नी भी चाहिए, लेकिन काफी लोग खरीद के शेल्फ पे रख लेते हैं. So you will also realize that the red helmet is a very critical part of the story, and I think it's got a life all of its own, and I'm very glad we went with it as a title. It was suggested by Clarence, and he said I should drop the earlier title, because when I initially wrote the book, I only looked at it as an India book. A lot of my dialogue, in fact, was in Punjabi with no translation, and I thought people would somehow miraculously get it. But I had to then tone it down, which is why you should get a good editor. A critical editor will tell you, are you mad or are you mad? Like, take all of this out. Nobody's going to understand it. And then we sort of took all of that out, and yeah, we had the title The Red Helmet. Yeah, Sharmeet has a difficult question.
There's a segment about writers in the Financial Times, and I always love this question when they ask writers, who is your ideal reader?
George Clooney.
Well, I think he's taken, so you'll have to...
He's reading right now. He's got so much to do.
I have a very good book, maybe he will, and I want to see his wife in Sadi Sari, so I think there is real hope.
George Clooney, huh?
I mean, Imran is getting very nervous.
I would have said Fawad Khan and be happy with it, but now you've raised the standard.
Wait. This whole Fawad Khan issue, Narayan, will you please just stand up? 1 minute. No, you stood behind the podium and nobody saw the dhoti, because I've been talking about my dhoti.
You have to see it. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
I have India's answer to Fawad Khan. Okay,
I think we'll put the jury out there later. It's very, very good.
You can turn him into a poster by all means. All the Desi girls are taking Fawad Khan posters home. This is not fair.
Well, I agree with you. I think we should concentrate on other. There was another hand on this side.
Nobody has questions. Let's all go and drink, yeah.
No, I'm paid by time, so I need one more question. Otherwise, I'll ask an awkward question which you told me not to ask. Finally, Huma's going to ask another question.
Ask me about your favorite Bollywood movie or
favorite Bollywood movie? I'm waiting for that. No, now my favorite Bollywood movie changes with every release. I'm waiting for that Kill Dil, which has some fantastic numbers. I like to watch all kinds of Bollywood movies. I love Chennai Express, by the way. I love Gangs of Wasseypur. I made Imran watch it, and he said thank you. But no, you shouldn't go back on that, no? No, I enjoy my cinema, and when I go in to watch Hindi cinema, I go in with, if I'm watching a Dabang, I'm watching a Dabang, I want to see the coin throwing, and I watched Dabang when it was released in India, and people were busy throwing coins on the screen. Great drama, yeah. That's the whole point of cinema, and people go in and watch Salman Khan and they say, "Arey yaar, ye Nawazuddin Siddiqui nahi hai," but you don't go in expecting your cinema to be like that. And I enjoy that variety in cinema. I want to watch my Salman Khan. I want to watch my Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I want to see a Queen. And I want to see a Kill Dil.
Kill Dil.
Because of
coming
Ali
out
Zafar.
soon. Ali Zafar, yeah.
It will be damn cool. Please hear the songs. They're very good.
She's put it on Facebook now again, so.
do you want your book to get a movie?
Movie. That's a good question.
Why not?
Do you want your book to be a movie?
Starring? I wrote it for Rohit Shetty. I thought you don't notice it.
Yeah, that was my question really. I wanted to know who you would want to play your lead female character.
Well, if it's made in Bollywood, then Deepika Padukone. Why not? I mean, you have that body, namesake and all of that. Yeah, was a problem, but never mind. We can always dream. And I think you should always put your dreams out there, because I have learned in many years of my life that each time I dream, it somehow miraculously happens. So if The Red Helmet ever becomes a movie, I'd like Deepika Padukone to play the lead. We'll find fitting other characters around her.
She'll be the central part. Okay, so I'll ask a question because I think people really want to drink.
I want to drink.
Okay. So what next? Are we going to wait 23 years, or you got something cooking?
I always have something cooking. I think I have a very, I can't sit still. You know, you've known me so many years around. It's also, I'm always waiting for it, the next story. And I think that's the thrill of life, the next story. And it must not, I hope, my writing journey does not end with this one book, but it will entirely depend if readers buy it and they relate to the story. If they don't, I don't think I have much of a future as a writer. So please hashtag The Red Helmet out of its wits. Buy the book, Amazon it. We've got PayPal, we've got everything going. But really, on a more serious note, I'm just completely overwhelmed that so many of you are here today. I really did not expect it. I mean, I didn't think we would have more than 15 or 20 people, which is generally the case for anything to do with books. And it makes me completely hopeful and optimistic about the future of books. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Deepika Shetty, thank you so much for the conversation. Cocktails in the next room.
Before the drinks, just a couple of thank yous. Mumtaz Moise and SP Jain for very kindly sponsoring this wonderful venue. Rajan Menon and Pranod Ricardo for the wine that we're all going to be drinking soon enough. Gajali for the food that we're all going to be eating soon enough. Rex of Ban Hock Hin for the zippy 5-engine red scooter that comes from ADH, distributor of Piaggio bikes. I think we'll all need to take a picture with a red helmet. Video House for the filming and post-production of the clip. Subina for the wonderful flowers. And Rachna Anand for the photography. And all of you for being here and for being such a wonderful audience. Please take lots of pictures. Hashtag The Red Helmet. And now please go drink, take lots of photos. Thank you, Deepika. And if somebody has got my autographed copy of the book by mistake, can you return it to me? I lost it. Oh.